The topic of today's Dharma talk is controlling senses with mindfulness. Before Sayadaw gave the talk, he paid respect to the triple gems, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And on our behalf, he said we offer to the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha with our practice. And with the keeping precepts and the practice, Sayadaw wish on the yogis peacefulness, happiness, and the achievement of the goal of freedom from the suffering. So, with our offer to the triple gem, with our practice, that is our best offer to the triple gems. We do not offer. We not only offer the material things like a flower, etc., but we offer with our best practice, meaning Vipassana meditation practice. So when we practice Vipassana meditation, we really walk on the Noble Eightfold Path. So the goal of this practice is enlightenment, to put an end to all the suffering, go beyond the conditioned phenomena. So how can we get out of on the conditioned phenomena? So we get out by our practice of senses controlling. First, we keep the precepts so that we can keep our body and our speech purified. Then, in order to calm the mind, to prevent the hindrances of the mind from arising, we practice meditation to have concentration. By contemplating on the four kind of objects belong to the body, belong to the feelings, belong to the mind, and belong to the Dharma, mean the mind objects. And when we practice well, cultivate the mindfulness, then concentration, then we develop Vipassana insight, and finally enlightenment. So that is a wisdom group. So basically it's through the three groups, morality, concentration, and wisdom. And that basically is the Noble Eightfold Path. And when we practice this correctly, that means we control the senses. So to purify our body and mind. So if we follow this path correctly, then we put an end to the thinking process associated with greed, anger, and delusion. So when we do it right or do it wholesomely, we get the good results. And if we do the unwholesome things, and we get the bad results. That is the law of karma. And as a practitioner or as a Buddhist, this is the first right understanding. We need to have that. And we need to have a clear mind with mindfulness when we face object close to us as far object far from us. And that is what we try to do during our practice, so that we can have that, we can equip to do that. So when we practice, we encounter many difficulties. Not only us, but on the disciple of the Buddha during his time encounter difficulties when they practice Vipassana meditations. So there is a story recorded in the books in the sutta. There are 5 bhikkhus. They encounter difficulties when they practice controlling the senses. And because of the difficulties, and they came back to see the Buddha and reported what they practiced and what difficulty they encounter to the Buddha with the hope that the Buddha can guide them properly. So one bhikkhu say he practiced controlling the eyes, and he say it's very difficult because so many things happening, and it's hard to control the seeings. So this is one bhikkhu. Another bhikkhu say he practiced controlling the ear sense, and he says so many sound happening, it's hard to control the sound upon hearing. So the third one is regarding control of the nose. In the similar way, so many smell and difficult to control. And the fourth one is practice to control the tongue. So many tastes, so it's hard to control. And each one say that what the control of the sense they practice is the most difficult. And upon hearing the bhikkhus reporting their practice with difficulty, the Buddha praised them for their hard work and their effort in doing so. And Buddha agreed that the objects of their senses are very difficult to control. But the Buddha say the most difficult is the mind. So the Buddha say if you can control the mind, then you can control other senses. Therefore, based on the teaching, the controlling of the mind is the most important. Because if we are blind, then we are kind of free from the seeings, and if we cannot hear, then we have less problem with the hearing, etc. But no matter what problem we have with the first 5 senses belong to the body, we still have the mind. And how do we control the mind? So that is the question, because this is the most important according to the teaching of the Buddha. And the Buddha explained the difficulties of controlling of the mind with the law of the karma. So Buddha say that if you think unwholesomely, then this will lead to the unwholesome actions and speech. And if you do that, then the unwholesome karma will follow you like the cart loaded with the heavy stuff, and the cow had to pull the cart. So it's very, very heavy. And if we have a wholesome mind, then we will have a wholesome actions. And like the shadow follow us, and the shadow is very light, it can follow here and there. So this show that the unwholesome action, unwholesome thinking are very heavy on our life. But if we have a wholesome thinking and leading to the wholesome action, then we have everything is light, like the shadow. So if we know how to control the mind, then we will be able to control other senses. But how do we control the mind? That's the question. So the Buddha say you control the mind with the mindfulness. So mindfulness is like the guard at the entrance. So the guard at the entrance prevent the evil people or the bad people coming in. The same way the mindfulness guards the mind, prevent the unwholesome things enter the mind, or prevent defilement entering the mind. So, but what is the mindfulness? So mindfulness is one out of the 25 wholesome mental states or mental factors. The mind we know of is a combine of the consciousness and mental states. And the definition of the consciousness is acknowledge the presence of an object. Then arising at the same time with that consciousness is a mental state. And this mental state modify that consciousness. Like a glass of clear water, that is a consciousness. But if we put the color in, red color, then it turns out to be a glass of red water. So that red color is a mental state, and to modify the consciousness. So the consciousness and the mental state arise together and disappear together. They have the same object. And among those 25 wholesome mental states, first we have the faith. Our faith is in the Buddha, is an enlightened person, in his teachings, and in his holy disciples. Then another wholesome mental state is mindfulness. Another wholesome mental state here is we are ashamed of evil actions, evil thinkings, and we feel feel bad. We are fearful of unwholesome things and unwholesome thinkings. So those are another two wholesome mental states. And among these 25, mindfulness is important mental states. And we practice the Vipassana meditation is to cultivate and strong established mindfulness. And we start our practice with the primary object, which is the rising and the falling of the abdomens. And we follow closely, simultaneously with the movement of the abdomens. So Sayadaw also say that when we see an object or we hear a noise, that means we have the seeing consciousness or hearing consciousness. That is a consciousness. Then there are 7 mental states always happen with any consciousness. So the first one is contact, the second one is a feeling, the third one is perception, the fourth one is the intention, another one is attention, one is concentration, meaning one's pointedness of mind. So the other one is altogether is 7, like contact, feeling, perception, concentration, and there is intention already, and one is like the base for keeping other mental state alive. So we try to practice Vipassana meditation to develop mindfulness. And mindfulness is one of the 25 mental states. Then there are other mental states not always occur or arise with the consciousness, but they arise if the conditions are met, like aiming, like when we aim at the object to note. So that aiming is not automatic, but we had to make it happen. Or the joy, when we practice well, we develop rapture, and that rapture is conditioned on our practice. So it doesn't happen automatically, but it happens because of condition is met. So that is some of mental states Sayadaw mentions. And Sayadaw also mentioned about unwholesome mental state, like ignorance. Ignorance here means we are ignorant about the Four Noble Truths. And because of this ignorance, we create the wholesome and unwholesome karmas. And from these karmas, wholesome and unwholesome karma, after this life, we will be reborn in another life, next life. So, and with the next life, we have the rebirth consciousness. So they are resulting consciousness. So that is the third one. So he mentioned about the dependent origination in general. So the ignorant leading to the karma, and the karma leading to the rebirth consciousness or resulting consciousness. So if we know how to control the mind with the mindfulness, then we can control on other senses. For example, when we see an object, and if we are aware about the seeing with the mindfulness, then that means we control our eyes. So when we hear the sound, we hear with mindfulness, then we control our hearing. And this mindfulness arises if we practice and cultivate by noting when we encounter the object. And this mindfulness has a function like a guard at the entrance. So it prevents the defilement entering the mind. And therefore, in order to control our mind, we need the mindfulness. And thanks to mindfulness, we develop concentration. And with the concentration, we develop wisdom to understand the real nature of the phenomena we encounter. And the method we practice is the Vipassana meditation. Another name of that is for foundation of mindfulness. That means we contemplate the body, on the body, the feeling in the feelings, the consciousness in the consciousness, and the dharmas in the dharmas. So we do this with the goal to get enlightenment, to get the freedom from the sufferings. And in one sutta, the Buddha taught the monk, so when you see, just the seeing. When you hear, just the hearing. So what does the teaching mean? Mean that if you see with mindfulness, then you just see with the seeing. So you don't think upon it too much, so that the thinking process occur, then associated with greed, anger, and delusion. Then that is unwholesome mind. So that means when you see, just see, means see with the mindfulness. And the clear comprehension, that means when we practice, not only we observe the object, but we observe with clear comprehension, meaning that whatever the object is, we understand as it is. So if we can control our senses or our mind with mindfulness, then our mind is purified. Like the clear glass like a glass with the clear water, not modified by the color. And the Buddha taught us a way to live a life without suffering. So that way is we prevent our mind contaminated by greed, anger, and delusions. In the worldly life, we live a life with a lot of worries and sufferings. When we encounter the objects, like a visible object, the sound, smell, the taste, the object through the touchings, we do not have mindfulness. Therefore, we thinking when we encounter the objects, and this thinking carry the greed, anger, and delusion with it, so cause us to suffer in life. The Buddha taught other ways to live in life. So we still encounter this object. We don't try to avoid the object, but we encounter them with mindfulness, so that when we see, just seeing, when we hear, just hearing, so always have mindfulness when we encounter the object. So this prevents the thinking process associated with greed, anger, and delusions. So the way the Buddha taught us is not to run away from the object, but we live and with mindfulness. And in order to have mindfulness, we had to put effort in our practice of the Vipassana meditations. Buddha also taught the monks living together 6 ways to live harmoniously. Harmonious with the body, harmonious with the speech, harmonious with the whatever they get, and etc. So live harmoniously. And this can be applied to any organization in worldly life. So the way, according to the Buddha, is living with the calm and purified mind. So it's the opposite of the chaotic mind and unpeaceful mind in the worldly life. So there is one celestial being and encountered many difficulties in the celestial realm and came down to ask the Buddha. And upon that question, Buddha explained about the 38 ways to have happiness. And that is, they were recorded in the Mangala Sutta, mean the sermon on the happiness. The way the Buddha lived, and he taught us to live, is full of love. But this love is not contaminated love. So the Buddha taught us to love everyone without attachment. And therefore, usually when we praise the Buddha, we praise with 9 qualities of the Buddha. The first one is Arahant. Arahant means there are so many meanings, but the one meaning we thought of is the one he perfectly purified. And the second one is omniscient Buddha. So Sammasambuddho, that means the enlightenment with omniscient knowledge. That means he can know anything he wants to know. All he does is just direct his mind to that issue that he will know. And the third one is a full mean perfect in the morality and wisdom. And the fourth one is the Sugato. Sugato means he became a Buddha like a previous omniscient Buddha, and always taught the beneficial and suitable things to benefit the beings. And the fifth one is he understands the word. The word here means on the beings, on the real words, and the condition, phenomenon arising and disappearing. And the next one is unparalleled, mean incomparable. So no being can compare with the Buddha in the way to help the beings to purify themselves. And the next one is a teacher of man and celestial beings through the Four Noble Truths. That is the teacher of man and a celestial being. The next one is Buddha. Buddha means someone who knows and teach other people in order for them to know also. Or he get enlightenment and he help the beings to get enlightened. And the next one is the perfect one. So he's a perfect because of those qualities. So we offer our flowers and material things to show our respect, our faith in the Buddha. But the best offer is a practice of vipassana meditations. So through the practice of vipassana meditation, we will understand the real natures of the material world, of our body consisting of 28 material properties, but among them the four primary factors is the earth, fire, wind, and water elements. And to understand these four primary factors is to understand the real natures, their true real natures, which are the impermanence, suffering, and non-self. And regarding the second aggregate is feelings. With the practice, we understand the three common characteristics of the feeling also. And the mind, the same way. And the other aggregates the same. And for places, we practice of contemplation the same. So the body, the feelings, the mind, and the mind objects. So when we contemplate on them, we will understand their real natures and common characteristics, impermanence, suffering, and non-self. So regarding the death, and there is the death in life, once in a life. That is the final moment we die and we leave this life. And everybody has to face that sometime in their life. And everyone afraid of this death. But there is another death, death every moment, which is the arising and disappearing momentarily. So people don't know this, but the practitioner will experience this death, the momentary death. So when we note the phenomenon when they appear, and if we have established mindfulness, we have strong concentration, then we can see them just after the arising, they disappear. So that means the death at each moment. And the other death means the normal death will lead us to death indefinitely, one life after another. But the second kind of death, if we understand it, then it will lead us to immortality. That means we get out of the death and get out of the round of rebirth by realization of Nibbana. So we live a worldly life with forgetfulness. That means we live, but it's like we are dead because we don't know what's happening. But if we practice, and then we live a life, and really a life, because we know the true nature of the phenomenon happening through our understanding with mindfulness. And this life is a life without greed, without anger, without delusion. So therefore, this way of life will lead us to immortality. There is a saying that when we face the death in life, we face the death alone, and we live this life alone on a path with the by ourselves. When will we die? We die in life? We don't know. And after death, where do we go? We don't know. Why? Because we are ignorant. Because of ignorance, we continue one life after another in the round of rebirth. And even we live in each life, but we live like a dead person or dead being because we're not aware or we don't know what's happening. In order to get out of this round of rebirth, we need to live a life with knowing. So that means we need to be mindful and of what's happening around us or in our body and mind. So living without death, meaning we live with wisdom. And this wisdom comes from the concentration. And concentrate comes from the mindfulness. So mindfulness is the key for this way of life. That's why when we say we offer the triple gems, the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, with our practice, that means we practice and offer. That is the way to show our respect to the triple gems. So again, in life we die one time, but if we practice, we can see the death every moment. And imagine that 1 minute. If you say 1 second is 1 moment, more than moments, but just say 1 second is 1 moment. Then in 1 minute we have 60 moments, and in hour 3,600 moments. Then 1 day 24 hours, and 1 month is 30 days, 1 year 365, and so many years, so many moments. And if we can see the death every moment, then that means we understand the life and death clearly. And with that understanding, we know how to control the senses and by controlling the mind. So rising and falling. So in one rising, there are so many small rising in it. So it's not just one single rising, but a process of risings. Similarly, the falling, the whole process of falling. If the yogi follow closely by noting the rising and falling, the yogi will see that in one rising there is so many small rising coming and going. And the same way as in the falling. If the yogi notes carefully, simultaneously, precisely, we'll see in one falling there is a whole process of many small falling. And can see each small falling coming and going. And by that, the yogi realized the impermanence of the phenomenon, or the object here, the rising and fallings. And with that practice, with that deep understanding, the mindfulness becomes strong and can be an effective guard of the mind. So the yogi need to put effort in their practice. So the mental factors, it has a function to remind the consciousness. So the mindfulness mental factor, it remind the consciousness of what the consciousness encounters. So when we note the risings, that means we have the mental factor mindfulness to go along with the consciousness which is recognize the rising when it happens. So the rising and the falling are two processes of many small rising and many small falling. So the yogi needs to practice seriously in order to discover this. It's not just one single rising or one single falling. So in Sayadaw mentioned again the wholesome mental states. So faith, mindfulness, and shame of the evil things, and fearful of the evil thing on unwholesome things, and the happiness, the joyfulness, the pliancy in the mind, the flexible of the mind, etc. And these only arise when we practice vipassana meditations. So in short, Sayadaw say that we need to develop mindfulness. And with the mindfulness, we note the phenomena, prominent phenomena each moment. And with that, our mind is purified. No greed, no anger, no delusion. So we have a nibbana, we have an enlightenment each moment we note. That's called the momentary enlightenment or momentary nibbanas. And with that, we live with mindfulness without forgetfulness. And the Buddha, at the end of his life, he entered the nibbanas, and as the enlightened persons. So then Sayadaw encouraged the yogi to practice, to develop mindfulness. Then he quoted the excerpt of the Satipatthana Sutta, which we recite at the end of the Dhamma talk. So this is the only way to purify beings for overcoming of sorrow and lamentation, for disappearance of pain and grief, for reaching the noble path, for the realization of Nibbana, namely the four foundation of mindfulness. So with that, Sayadaw wish on the yogis practice hard to gain. So Sayadaw wish on the yogi to gain the peacefulness and happiness through their practice.